Hello everyone. In this presentation, we're going to look at some of the research methods that are employed in music therapy research. Just as theory is important in laying the foundation for practice, research forms an integral part of the reciprocal relationships with theory and practice, according to Getty 2015. Broadly speaking, research can be categorized as quantitative or qualitative, depending on the assumptions of research and procedures undertaken. To build on the strengths and compensate for the weakness of various methods, mixed method is advocated, which incorporates both quantitative and qualitative research methods to investigate the same phenomenon. In this presentation, we're going to look at some of the quantitative research methods, that is meta-analysis and randomized controlled trial, RCT, and qualitative method in the form of qualitative experimental single-subject study in the context of music therapy research for children with autism. Now let's take a look at meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is the use of statistical procedures to compile and evaluate the quantitative research data so as to enable greater confidence in concluding the efficacy of music therapy interventions. In the meta-analysis by Whipple 2004, the focus was to examine the benefits of music therapy interventions by identifying quantitative studies that met the inclusion criteria and to compare music to no-music conditions as treatment of children and adolescents with autism. Out of the 29 treatment studies, 10 quantitative studies were found to have met the inclusion criteria. A detailed analysis of the studies was done in terms of identifying the types of dependent variables measured, for example, social behavior, cognitive skill, the dependent variables such as challenging behaviors or gross motor task completion, the subject's age, the theoretical approach employed, and if the session was an individual or group. A partial extract is shown here on the screen. There was a hierarchy of variables for analysis in place where more than one variable with quantitative data was present. Variables were converted to Cohen's-d using statistical software to get an estimated effect size. Effect sizes of each study measuring by two coefficients were calculated, Pearson R and Cohen's-d, based on the sample size of the experimental group and control group, along with confidence interval, and some other statistical values. The coefficient R is to find out if the experimental or treatment group performs better than the control group, while coefficient D is to indicate the magnitude of the effect in terms of standard deviation units. It also indicates if possible outlier or deviant effect size exists. The overall results show that the use of music in treatment with this population group has a relatively high effect. However, in analyzing the different theoretical approaches that underpin the studies, it was concluded that there was no difference in treatment effect irrespective of the theoretical approaches employed, based on the non-significant homogeneity Q value. So what are the strengths of meta-analysis? First, it serves as a tool to summarize and tabulate a comprehensive body of literatures in the subject area. It is a sophisticated approach with the calculated effect sizes that provides information about the magnitude and direction of the effect. It enables the handling coding of large number of studies, which other methods may not be possible otherwise. There are also some weaknesses in this method. First, it requires expertise with statistical knowledge in handling, analyzing, and interpretation of data. Second, analysis always depends on the amount of information available from studies, for example, sample size and variables. Third, some people see the result may be biased because studies with findings that are not significant are excluded, just as what we see from this meta-analysis. And the issue of comparing different measurement tools, variables, and different subjects through a computerized process would have excluded the subtleness of experience, and in music therapy, the music experience that clients have gone through. Now, let's take a look at another quantitative research method, randomized controlled trial, RCT. The study that I've chosen to talk about is RCT employing a single subject comparison design in two different conditions, that is improvised music therapy and play sessions with toys. The study aimed at investigating and comparing the effectiveness of interventions in facilitating joint attention behaviors and nonverbal social communication skills in children with autism by Kim et al. 2008. In this study, 13 boys and 2 girls aged between 3 and 5 years old with autism were recruited through a hospital psychiatry service in Korea, with 5 dropped out for various reasons. The participants were randomly assigned to 2 groups. It is a comparison designed to investigate between conditions of improvisational music therapy session and play sessions, and within subjects, that is child-led and therapist-led. In Group 1, which comprises of 5 children, they received music therapy session first and play session after. In Group 2, another 5 children, they received play session first and music therapy session after. Each session in both conditions were divided into a 15-minute undirected or child-led part, followed by the 15-minute directed part by the therapist, who would gently introduce modeling and turn-taking activities. 2 measurement tools were used. The Pervasive Developmental Disorder Behavior Inventory C, PDDBI, completed by both the mothers of the children and professionals who were involved with the child to assess the children's responsiveness to interventions. And the second measurement tool, the Early Social Communication Skills, ESCS, which is a structured toy play assessment measuring nonverbal social communication skills through schools for 2 types of joint attention behaviors. All sessions were video recorded, which was subject to detailed analysis. For the results, in the first measurement tool, the parents and the professionals acknowledged improvements in both conditions. The scores of the professionals suggested greater improvement after music therapy than after play session. The scores of the mothers, however, were not consistent in this direction. The level of agreement between mothers and the professionals appeared to be very low. The second measurement tool and session analysis suggested that the majority of participants showed greater improvement in joint attention skills during and after music therapy than during and after play sessions. The participants showed longer turn-taking behavior in directed part than in undirected part in music therapy and the play sessions. The results suggested that improvisational music therapy has the potential to facilitate skills that are fundamental to social interaction. So what are the strengths of RCT? First, this is gold standard. It is widely used in medicine and health science. And also, different events can be compared by providing comparable figures. What are the weaknesses? It fails to show interaction between clients and therapists. And persons and treatments are standardized and therefore not person-centered. And the results may be difficult to interpret, particularly when the conditions are not observed in properly controlled conditions. Now let's turn to look at qualitative method. The qualitative experimental single subject study that I've chosen was to investigate the effectiveness of using songs embedded in ongoing classroom routines to increase the independence of a 3-year-old boy with autism during multi-step self-care tasks, notably hand washing, toileting, and cleaning up, by Kern et al. 2007. A detailed description about the client, his baseline behavior in the 3 areas, the setting where the intervention was conducted, the materials and songs used in the interventions, the training and specific instructions about how the teacher should involve and prompt during the interventions were given. Data were collected using an alternating treatment design, that is using condition A, song embedding the tasks, alternated day by day with condition B, lyrics only by the teacher. Data collected through daily observations were undertaken by 2 observers, the first author and an educational specialist consultant. Percentage of completion of each of the tasks by the client independently was calculated. For the results, the clinical use of song interventions was more effective than the use of lyrics for some daily tasks. Specifically, the song intervention was more effective than lyric intervention for the hand washing and cleanup tasks, while the lyric intervention was slightly more effective than the song intervention for toileting. So what strengths do we notice from this method? The individual's response to interventions with a moment-to-moment experience can be tracked, enabling an individualized treatment plan. It is person-centered. It allows an in-depth analysis of specific areas that are to be studied. It can be easily understood by a wide spectrum of readers, which would be beneficial in advocating the interventions. The weaknesses are it contains a small sample size, so generalization of the results to other children in this case should be taken with care. It involves elements of subjectivity in data collection and analysis. Before I answer the question, what do we learn from these research methods? Let me give you reasons for choosing the said papers. In meta-analysis, it gives a clear account laying out the procedures in data collection, analysis in terms of inclusion criteria, and statistical workouts. However, the statistical process excludes outliers and findings that are not significant. In the second paper on RCT, it demonstrates how and why different measurement tools were used. However, it lacks information about how improvisational music therapy and how the 15-minute therapist-led sessions were carried out. For the qualitative experimental single-subject design, it gives a clear and detailed description of the background of the client and the scenario where the intervention was carried out. When we look at how data was collected and analyzed, we see the steps for achieving the tasks under study, which was clearly laid down. While most people may view quantitative methods as less biased and objective in truth finding, and qualitative being subjective and not scientific, we may come to see a different view after studying these papers. We see there are areas that cannot truly and fully be quantified. That is how humans interact with each other. What the setting was when the intervention was carried out, what the background of client was, and many more. After all, music therapy is a domain categorized by human behavior, which is individualistic and unique. Thank you very much for listening.